Hi guys, this is Aubrey. Sorry if I sound bad right now. I'm kind of sick right now. So, pretty much I'm doing this after recording everything. I recorded this a while ago. I'm just editing now. But I didn't really make an intro for this. I kind of just started yapping. So this is my little attempt at an intro. So I start off talking about the Hunger Games in this video, and I talk about the Hunger Games throughout the video, and I don't know if I'm going to put that in the title or not. But this is a general analysis on how the media is portrayed to its users in a manipulative way. I just used the Hunger Games, specifically the newest Hunger Games book that came out, Sunrise on the Reaping, as a great example of how the media manipulates its viewers. So trust me, I do get onto that, and I do have more examples of that later on in the video, but just bear with me while I yap about the Hunger Games in the first few minutes of it. So thank you. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Yeah.
So we all know about the Hunger Games. I feel like it's a very well-known series, and we know pretty much everything to know about it. Everyone loves the Hunger Games. If you don't love the Hunger Games, that's a little weird. But I feel like the Hunger Games, there's obviously so many underlying meanings and themes within it that are a reflection of the society that we live in right now. And in the latest novel that Miss Suzanne Collins came out with, named Sunrise on the Reaping, we follow Hamish Abernathy in his Quarter Quell Hunger Games, the 50th Hunger Games. And we see how unjust his aftermath and his outcome became through the Hunger Games. And we see Suzanne's commentary on the way media lies to its consumers. And I feel like this is a very well-known fact. Everyone knows that what you see online isn't real anymore. But I believe that the way that Miss Suzanne Collins has gone about showing this is brilliant and needs to be talked about, because I really haven't seen any videos on it lately. And I feel like this is a good time to talk about it since the trailer just came out for Sunrise on the Reaping, and there is a bit more hype coming up for it. So I'm going to do a very brief summary of Sunrise on the Reaping, just so you guys know what we're talking about. The Hunger Games is a universe set in this place called Panem, where there are 12 districts and a capital. After an uprising against the capital, the 13 sections, being the 12 districts and the capital, agreed to the districts sacrificing one man and woman, or I should say one boy and girl, because they are between the ages of 12 to 18, to fight to the death in an arena as a way to acknowledge the lives lost in the war. As the games continued throughout the years, the capital citizens had made it into a spectacle, dressing up the tributes, interviewing them, making extravagant arenas for the tributes to fight in, and making the victor of these death circles, pretty much, go on a tour afterwards, and then just consistently belittling and using them as the victors as a puppet pretty much, to just dangle in front of the districts, being like, oh yeah, like, this is one of the kids that made it out of the 24-person massacre. That's the summary of what the Hunger Games are. And Collins uses the media, the way that the Hunger Games are represented, to touch on the topic on how people over-romanticize things through media. So, in the newest edition of the Hunger Games series, like I said, Sunrise on the Reaping, we follow Hamish into his Hunger Games. It's a Quarter Quell Hunger Games, and that means that every 25 years they do a special thing to spice up the games. And Hamish is reaped for the 50th Hunger Games. In his case, the amount of tributes is doubled, which means instead of fighting 23 other children, he gets to fight 47! Him making it the 48th. Isn't that so fun? Isn't that just what you want to watch on a Monday morning? It's just some other person's child brutally getting stabbed to death within the first 20 seconds of the game. Doesn't that sound so fun? Anyways, as soon as we start reading the book, we, as the reader, get shown how the media and the production of the Hunger Games lies to its consumers through the reaping scene, which is a live televising of the tributes being chosen in their districts for, the murder, death, kill game. Haymitch was reaped illegally because the original chosen tribute was killed because he tried to run away, and a peacemaker decided, you know what, today's just not your day, dude, and killed him and shot him. And Haymitch was standing there holding on to his dying body, and the lady that reaped him was just like, what's your name? He was like, Haymitch Abernathy. She was like, okay, Haymitch, you're gonna be in the Hunger Games now. But no one sees this. No one outside of the people that were in District 12 for that reaping knew of this because it got edited. It was a live broadcasting, but since they gave like a 5-minute time in between when it actually aired to the rest of Panem, they just edited it. So it made it look like Haymitch was reaped. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is how you automatically know that we are going to be in for a wonderful story by Miss Suzanne Collins. Anyways, as Haymitch puts it, both fascinated and sickened by the flawless transition from Maesley's drawing to Wyatt's and mine, not even a hint of woodbine shooting or the turmoil that followed. The Capitol citizens were shown to be none the wiser, and this small section is only the beginning of Collins' commentary on how the media shapes our perceptions. We only see things that the producers want us to see. So, obviously this theme goes on throughout the book, but it is especially important at the ending after Haymitch wins his game. He goes on to his final victor thing, like a week after the games, where during that week he was sedated and force-fed food and fixed against his will, which is also a thing we see with Katniss in the original Hunger Games, where in the aftermath of her games, they were sedated, pretty much, and again, force-fed, so they didn't look like they were starving, because it is called the Hunger Games, but why would we make it look like the children are actually hungry when the aftermath comes up? Because we can't give away the fact that this is really happening to our citizens. We just need to show them this experience of, oh, look at this fun game these kids are playing. Oh, isn't this so fun and entertaining? When they do see these victors for the first time after they come out of the arena, it doesn't hit them like, oh, like this is real. Like, these kids are really starving. No, they force feed them, and then literally Haymitch, as the mentor for Katniss and Peeta, who are the victors of the 74th Hunger Games from the original, like the actual Hunger Games book, Haymitch literally had to tell the people not to make Katniss's breasts larger because, again, she is a 16-year-old girl, and they sedated her and were going to force her to have plastic surgery to fit the beauty standards of the Capitol. He had to tell them not to. Because again, the way that the media is being perceived and how this game, this show of the Hunger Games is being perceived by these Capitol citizens is it's not real. None of it is real, and this is a reality TV show for them. Everything looks edited and is made to be what the game makers want them to perceive. Okay, I'm going on a rant. Anyways, so we're at Haymitch and his final victor straight after recap thing. where he's going to sit down and watch the highlights of his own Hunger Games, just to kind of like reminisce on it, because, it's not like he just lived through it or anything. No, the Capitol people needed to see his thoughts on it. An important thing to note about his games is throughout it, Haymitch was solely focused on destroying the arena. That was his main purpose. He thought that if he could show the Capitol citizens what was really happening in this arena, then he could somehow fix the games. He could, restart the revolution, blah, blah, blah. He blew up a huge water tank he found at the edge of the arena, or he literally went underneath the arena and blew up a huge water tank. He found a force field at the edge of the arena and literally used it to win the games. He just constantly was doing things that he was thinking hurt the Capitol. Throughout the introduction of the tributes to the Capitol, he acted in ways that could be seen as rebellious. He did, like I said, everything to make the Capitol look stupid. But when watching the recap, guess what happened? None of his efforts were shown! To start, Haymitch tells the reader flat out, timelines are twisted. He also states that, in fact, our picnic, the campout, the bombing of the tank, my rampage, the arena going haywire, not a bit of it is shown. By making such a huge point of this, Collins is able to make the reader as angry as Haymitch is, because we just went through all of the struggles and heartbreak that he did. We saw all 3 of his fellow tributes from District 12 die. We saw a 12-year-old boy get brutally eaten alive by squirrels. We saw all of these people die at the hands of the game makers or at the hands of fellow tributes who were just scared children and pawns of the Capitol. We went through all of this effort, all of this heartbreak, all of this pain with Haymitch, and it came out to be nothing. And the main theme, it's not a main theme in Sunrise on the Reaping, but it is a theme in Sunrise on the Reaping if you think about it, is if our choices are really ours, or otherwise put, if people genuinely do have free choice. And the answer could go both ways. Yes, Haymitch did have free choice in what he was doing to stop the games. However, everything he did came at the cost of lives of people that he loved. On the other hand, everything that Haymitch did was ultimately pointless, since nothing was shown to anyone but the game makers, thus limiting his options. When he did everything he could with the options given to him, that's all that they were. Predetermined options. The producers of the Hunger Games were ultimately the ones choosing what the audience saw. If that doesn't completely summarize what the point of media is, it picks and chooses what you see. Everything is based off of an algorithm. Let's look at just basic political propaganda. Presidential candidates, corporations, and even entire countries can control narratives through our everyday lives via the internet. Obviously, through presidential elections, candidates use social media just as another form of communication to belittle their opponents and hype up their own efforts. But, obviously, these platforms can have their limitations. In the height of COVID, for example, President Trump had his Twitter account banned due to the glorification of violence, right after the 2021 raid on the Capitol. Since this banishment from a popular platform happened right after the 2020 elections, of which obviously President Biden was elected, some U.S. citizens criticized the action, saying that it was in bad taste or unnecessary, or not right-leaning enough, blah, 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 like, oh, this is a direct thing against President Trump, blah, blah. But, some people were like, yeah, no, he was using this form of media, this form of communication with the American citizens, the citizens he is supposed to be representing, and, the country he's supposed to be representing. Everyone has access to Twitter. It's not just an American thing. he, as the president, was making some weird calls, some weird posts. Obviously, he is going to be banned because he is not only representing himself, he is representing a country. Whether or not he is still the president, he is still representing a country. Either way, removing the former president from an app that was his main source of communication to the public is a very bold statement in the way that media can easily change the way that someone communicates and how easily it can control people. To be able to take away the voice of someone so important so quickly is an extremely big power, an extremely huge advantage to carry. In a similar fashion, entire countries can just limit the information their citizens have. Certain governments just are in control of what their citizens know and can easily erase events that they just don't want their citizens to know about. Let's look at China, for example. They are a huge abuser of this form of filtering information. They block certain websites or entire apps to control what Chinese civilians know and see. If someone was to search a blocked website, they would simply see an error message instead of seeing that website. China also filters through messages, emails, and just the usage of the internet of its citizens. There is zero privacy when your country does not want you knowing things. The level of censorship in China is completely linked to the control they have, and it is hard to rebel when you do not know what you are rebelling against. We can look at this at like the Hunger Games. Once again, all forms of rebellion that had happened only 75 years prior to the Hunger Games that we see with Katniss and Peeta, the one that started this series, was completely vanished. There was no way of knowing what genuinely happened in these Hunger Games other than the information that the Capitol had told their citizens or stories that were passed down from people that were genuinely in the war. And even then, those people could have easily been silenced because all it takes is for one peacekeeper to shoot someone. So no one's going to tell them what actually happened because they don't want to die. So there was no information told about what genuinely happened during the war. All they were told was, oh, well, the citizens rebelled. And as the capital, we decided to do what was right and keep them in check. And everything is just so glorified to be capital this, capital that. And I think that's what people aren't realizing, is that that's happening right now as well in America. Let's look at the critical race theory that is going on in American public schools. Our history of racism is being erased in certain states because they believe that we should not be glorifying or talking about the bad stuff in our history. So they sugarcoat it so much, or they just completely get rid of it. Slavery is what America was built off of, and there is no changing that. There is no way that you can flip it to make it seem like we weren't built off of the backs of slaves. And yet people are trying to erase that. And what is that saying? You are doomed to repeat history if you erase it. And what are we seeing? I don't want to say a history being repeated, but I'm not going to say it's not. So let's move on to another example of how media lies to its consumers by limiting what information can be accessed by the general public, or outright lying to create fear in its public. Let's look at a relevant example of this being the TikTok ban. This happened last year. It was only a year ago. And long story short, many American government officials experienced worry over TikTok's parent company being from Chinese origin. And, instead of looking further into it and just Googling, literally just straight up Googling, many American citizens went by the word of these government officials, which led to large amounts of fear-mongering and mistrust of foreign companies. However, if you just typed in your little keyboard or, on your little phone screen, which is where you read this information or where you watched a TikTok about it, you would see that TikTok is owned by a Singaporean company and that the data it collects is nothing more than any other app, which is sold to private companies, which is another thing all apps do, either American or foreign. You know what those little cookies are? Whenever you open a website, whenever you open an app, whenever it's like, can this cooking app access some data from your other apps? And then you can just be like, can you please not? You can't even say no to it. You can just say, ask app not to access data. It's so insane to me that people can't do basic research anymore. Literally, media literacy's frying. It's like fried away. It's so gone. It's not even there anymore. It packed its bags and it's on the next train to Hawaii. Social media also continuously only feeds its users forms of media that play into their own interests and ideas. And what is this called? An algorithm. The algorithm is designed to keep its users hooked on the content that they are consuming, which leads to a lot of unfortunate side effects. Yay! And one of these side effects is the lack of social learning. What is social learning, I hear you ask? Oh, well, my dear viewer, social learning is the process that all humans go through, which is picking up on habits, cues, and overall social things we learn through our peers. Something that you learn from going to school, working, being around people, just genuinely experiencing what it is to be with another human or be with a group of people. But with the rise of social media and thus the algorithms that depend on keeping consumers' attentions, we run the risk of not ever being shown things that go against our own views, but instead things that just confirm our own views, which is, what? Say it with me now. Confirmation bias. Oh my gosh. Algorithms' filtered content interferes with the strategies people typically use for social learning. This filtering of information easily leads to the simple spread of misinformation and harmful extreme views, which are also what lead to dog whistles. A dog whistle is a code of sorts for very racist or generally offensive things. For example, SS is a dog whistle for Nazis. Just put it plainly. We can see a lot more dog whistles coming out through social media. They don't even have to be that crazy. Literally, it could be a series of emojis that are typically connected to a group of people. For example, having a emoji combo of a watermelon, a basketball, and a chicken. And you know exactly what type of group of people is being referenced to that. That is a dog whistle. Is it as extreme as 88 or SS or HH? No, it's not. But it still is a dog whistle, and it is being confirmed over and over again by algorithms because they see people commenting that, they see that it gets likes, and it gets reintroduced and put onto more people's feeds because all this algorithm sees it as is an interaction. They see it as boosting that video. Doesn't matter what is being said in that video, it doesn't matter the content, as long as people are engaging with it, it boosts the video, it gets sent to more people, and more people see it, which just further confirms and deepens that stereotype and presses that dog whistle out to more people. And I feel like the most well-known one is the women with the little coffee emoji next to it. Personally, I don't know if that counts as a dog whistle, but you will see at least one of those under every single video of a woman. It doesn't have to be the fact that she is a woman. It could be a stupid driver video, and you will automatically see that in the first 5 comments. The top 5, there will always be a women coffee emoji. Anyways, this filtering of information and this use of an algorithm gets to the point where your apps become an echo chamber of things that only you believe in, and you do not get exposed to any outside perspectives. This is incredibly harmful because it's literally just not how the world works. If you stepped outside and said, hey, I believe dogs are better than cats, you will immediately find someone that's like, well, I like cats better than dogs. But you don't get that when it comes to social media. It goes back to the, hey, I like pancakes, so you hate waffles? It goes to that because when you are in a app that is based on a viewer-based algorithm, you will only ever get pancake videos again. You will never ever hear a thing about a waffle. Hi, Editing Aubrey. Even while researching just for this video, I literally was trying to go on Instagram and find all of these... Sorry, I'm out of breath. Trying to find all of these, like, the comments and everything, but since I interact so much with, like, certain types of videos, I literally could not find any, like, ooh, I hate women type videos. They were all, like, more feminist or misandric leaning stuff because that's what I interact with. So even when I was looking up very specific hashtags, like I looked up the hashtag of low value women, I looked up women being stupid, I looked up bad driver women, like all of this stuff, I would not find, like very rarely did I find videos that didn't immediately after like the first 3, it then went back to like, oh, here's this type of video that I would typically interact with, like the better, pro women videos. And also, when I looked up specifically the hashtag low value women, some of the very first videos I came across were videos with the feminist hashtag, which I just thought was a very interesting point, but that's not what I'm talking about in this video. So going back, thank you for the little intermission, guys. And this just adds fuel to the fire of people who do not do any additional research, that don't go outside of their little confirmation bubble. If there are 4 or 5 videos that spread the same amount of misinformation on their feed, these people will take that as fact. They will not do any extra research because social media apps do not fact check everything that is posted. And there is no real way to regulate the truth anymore when anyone can say anything at any time. And this lack of media literacy has become such a huge downfall for our current world. And don't get me wrong, I have even fallen for this. I have sat down and I'll be scrolling through my Instagram reels and I will have a political video pop up, or I'll just have the video pop up. And I'll sit there, I'll watch it, and I'll be like, well, that's cool. That's in my brain now. That's what I'm going to believe. And I'm just going to keep scrolling because whatever that video was about obviously was not important enough to me that I'm going to go and do extra research, especially when I will literally sit there for the 15 seconds, watch it, consume whatever it told me, and then go on to the next video. And I will not even be aware that what I have just read, what I have just watched, is a straight up lie. But I will turn around and have a conversation with someone and I'll be like, well, I saw a video on this saying that. And if that video seemed any form of sophistication, if it had any small amount of credibility in it that I believed made it look credible, I'll believe it. And that's what's so scary about the world we're living in, especially with the uprise in AI. The usage of AI, it's getting to the point where I can't even tell certain videos are AI. And there's no way to fact check whether or not something is AI now because AI has been trained on everything at this point. So the fact that M dashes and semicolons are being seen as AI proof and oh, it has an M dash, it's using proper grammar, that is now a sign that something is AI generated. And that is a scary thought because that means people don't know what an em dash is. They don't know how to use a semicolon. These things are being taught in schools, but they are not being utilized. That used to be a symbol of, oh, you are intelligent. You know how to use these. Or not even intelligent. You just know basic grammar. But now that is a sign of AI. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's propaganda at this point. And it's the fact that people are simply taking what they see as fact. And it's not a new idea. It's really not. If we go all the way back to when philosophers were still a thing, we can see a concept that was tokened by Aristotle called rhetoric. And the Cambridge Dictionary defines rhetoric as speech or writing intended to be effective and influence people. Simply put, rhetoric is the power to persuade people through writing. And Aristotle, the guy who discovered it, believed that rhetoric should be taught to everyone. However, his teacher Plato disagreed and believed that humanity would abuse the power of rhetoric for their own gain. And this argument has stood the test of time. And even now, people argue over how rhetoric could be used for good or evil. Many people say that we should learn about rhetoric so that we know when we're being manipulated. But others insist that if no one knew about rhetoric, there would be no manipulation. You know, in a perfect world, everyone would tell the truth. There would be no need to know when you're being manipulated by words, by little scribbles that we have just decided mean something. But since, we live in the world we live in, humans need to know how to see past a use of clever words. But this becomes so difficult when, once again, the people that are using this rhetoric are supposed to be people you can be able to trust. The people that you elected to represent you. Nothing shows the use of rhetoric more in the way that people we're supposed to trust manipulates us more than propaganda. When you think of propaganda, you probably think of the World War II Germany posters about communism or something in the red letters and the black and white, and it looks scary, and it's posted on a red brick wall, and it's like HH, dog whistles. And these posters described people in such vile ways. Like the British and Allied armies were depicted as cowards and butchers, or brave but misguided. But this drastically differed from how the Germans depicted themselves as strong and powerful, or how they drew the Russians as deranged, bloodthirsty animals. And the use of propaganda in World War II Germany was one of the main reasons as to why German citizens were not completely against the horrors that Hitler was committing, was because they were being persuaded into thinking Germany was right. Or, they saw the concentration camps and were like, maybe I won't speak out against this because I don't want to be thrown into a gas chamber. Additionally, the Allies, so us, in World War II also used propaganda to boost country morale. The US utilized the Office of War Information to document aspects of home front life and culture such as women in the workforce, and dealt with a wide array of morale issues such as the question of using Japanese Americans as soldiers and submersive activities like the Los Angeles Zoot Suit riots. By doing this, they were able to change their citizens' ideas into rooting for the US and not other countries, which overall controlled the narrative they were trying to push. The Germans and Japanese were bad, and America was the good guy. The plastered poster or booming voice commercial saying, "We can do this," way of propaganda is typically the main thing people think about when the topic's brought up. And while obviously this isn't wrong, it's a very narrow-minded view on what propaganda actually is. Propaganda is constantly being used in our everyday lives. Stanford University says, while propaganda is most evident in war times, as in the poster, it is constantly being used as a political and social mean in even less obvious ways to influence people's attitudes. They go on to explain that propaganda is seen through an abundance of forms of media and is constantly being thrown in consumers' faces. And it's represented today during political campaigns, where the campaigners use rhetoric to pursue their audiences into believing that they are the right choice to lead the country. And a main way to do this is through spreading misinformation about their opponent, or making up names of their opponent that puts them into a bad life. Or they'll use out-of-context quotes. Candidates will do anything to drag their opponent down to make themselves look better. And this tactic of bending the truth is also acknowledged in lots of popular forms of media now, and almost used ironically because of just how insane it is when you put it into perspective. For example, in Marvel Rivals, an in-game spray, which is a sticker that you can put into the map in-game, one of the characters, Loki, which is obviously the brother of Thor in the Marvel universe in Norse mythology, has a skin, which is a costume he wears, in which he is running in a presidential campaign against, I believe, Storm, which is another Marvel character. He appears on the spray, which is like in the form of the very famous Obama poster, and the word above him says believe, and within believe, lie is highlighted, it's bolded. And by doing this, the audience acknowledges that anything Loki says could be a potential lie. Like how real presidential candidates are able to say really anything, and people will believe them since they're in a position of power. Let's look at the Donald Trump, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, in Springfield, Ohio. You know what I know about Springfield? I know that The Simpsons is in it. That's the only thing I know about Springfield, Ohio. So this guy, he was our president once. Why would he lie to me? Like, yeah, I do believe in you, Mr. Trump. The immigrants are eating the dogs and cats. Do you know how insane that says? But that's what people believe. It's the same thing when anything gets popular and they sit there. For example, the freaking 6-7 thing. People are genuinely believing that that is a devil worshipping call. They're like, 6 is a demon, 7 is a demon. No! It's a stupid saying that got popular off of a rap song that literally continued to say 6-7, dump truck, baby shark. Do. Are we serious? Are we genuinely, we've lost the plot so much. The lack of media literacy, the lack of just cognitive thinking is so far gone now, you can't even wrap your head around it. At last, my concluding statements on this topic. Overall, the thought that everything we see or do has been filtered throughout so many different people, sources, or bots is simply exhausting. I mean, even now, I'm editing this video to make it so you only hear the things I want you to hear. You're not going to be hearing me messing up the words. You're not hearing my ums. You're not hearing my little notes to myself. I'm editing this so you're just hearing exactly what I want you to hear. And that's exhausting. And yet, the exact opposite is also true. People literally just say stuff to say stuff. No fact checking, just straight up lying to the camera and uploading it and calling it a day. And in a world where media literacy is slowly dying, and with it goes any basic common sense, it is ever more upsetting to see the very people who told us to be wary online, being our parents, our grandparents. You can't believe everything you see online. They're falling right into the traps set for them. I can't tell you how many times I've had to tell my mom, that's an AI video. Mom, that's AI. These people, half of our population, cannot wrap their head around the fact that, no, that dog is not dancing to the whip and nae, Mom. It's fake. And they can't understand it. They see a video of Donald Trump playing soccer with Cristiano Ronaldo, and they believe it. Because why would the president lie about that? The internet is a dangerous place, not because of serial killers or axe murderers, but because people refuse to search anything and take everything at surface level. And unfortunately, that's exactly what politicians and government officials seem to want more and more of. Preying on the uneducated has always been a sick tactic, and we will see it more and more every single day. I know this video is a lot different than, the last one I uploaded. And that's kind of the point of this channel, is just to kind of say what's on my mind. And I kind of love that about this. So, sorry for the downer, but thanks for coming to my soapbox.